I'm Lexy Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Welcome, Heart Snugglers. Excited to bring on this special guest today for our month of pregnancy and birth. So today we have Deborah, and she's going to explain everything about orgasmic birth. So go ahead and let them know a little bit about you and how you got into this work.
Oh, thanks, Lexi. It's such a pleasure to be here with you and with everyone. So, as you said, I'm Deborah. I've been fascinated with birth, I think, for all my life. As a little girl, I would ask, my grandmother and great grandmother their birth stories. And, I'm old enough, and at the time they were old enough, that my great grandmother had 8 children born at home. And it wasn't like today where people make a decision, do you want to give birth at home or birth center or hospital? Basically, in the early 1900s, everybody gave birth at home. And really, this idea that we go to hospital is relatively new. Most of us can go back a couple generations and capture all those home birth stories. But she told her birth story with joy, with excitement, it was hard and it was challenging and there were difficult moments, but she lit up that it was each time like the best moment of her life to welcome another baby into her life and into the family. And so I think that kind of sat with me. So I am today a mother and a grandmother. And when I went to start my own journey with birth, I wanted what she had. I wanted that joy that I saw in her. I wanted that ecstasy. But I found that it was kind of challenging. At the time I was giving birth, everybody was going to hospital and people were being put in hospital gowns, which certainly isn't very sexy or appealing, and really not given the autonomy to choose what position you want to be in. I was kind of being told, get in a bed. So you're literally put down physically and emotionally. And I knew that wasn't right. So I kind of fought the system early on, but I couldn't find a caregiver that really wanted to go with me. So I ended up having to find a young intern that hadn't seen a birth yet. And I thought, okay, I haven't given birth yet, but you haven't been indoctrinated into a system that I already knew was dysfunctional. So my own kind of journey, I won't tell all that story of it all, but I had a really positive birth. And that set me on a path to want to help other people, because I know probably people listening today, right, don't know the stories of their great grandmas, don't know the stories of when birth was joyful, and not that to take away that it's not hard. So I became a doula. I'm a doula trainer. I became a childbirth educator. And before you knew it, I was starting to be asked to teach all over the world. So I've been blessed to teach in 40 different countries in person, way more even online. And in all my work attending births and listening, I kept hearing that other people were having joy and bliss and ecstasy, but it was talked about kind of quietly because we really honor more the people that have challenges and that want to talk about the pain and the trauma and the fear. And through all that, I realized that we needed to bring a language of what is possible in birth out. So I'm a filmmaker and an author. I have the documentary Orgasmic Birth, co-authored the book Orgasmic Birth, and really have been able to create a global conversation that takes us from what we know historically birth was like to what the science says, which is often a big gap from where we are practicing today, and to explore what's possible. So I kind of say in birth, I wear all these different hats, from mother to grandmother to educator to doula trainer to filmmaker and author. And so I'm excited to dive in anywhere in this journey that has opened up for me, that really began with birth stories when I was a little girl.
Oh, so beautiful. I love how like your purpose was there, so early on, and how you just felt it in your heart. I want as many women in this world to know about this, because it makes me so sad when you still to this day, so many women have never heard that birth can be enjoyable. So it's a very important topic, and I think it's one of the most beautiful. I haven't had birth yet, but I definitely plan to have the most pleasurable birth. So first, I want to ask the question of the podcast. What was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Today, I received a package this morning from a dear friend, Sokna, and she sent me some herbs that she grew from her own garden and dried. And we're doing a collective group, virtual, all different places, yoni steam together. So she sent me these beautiful herbs and encouraged me to really sit with them and get ready to steam them.
Wow, that is beautiful. And do you have like a yoni steam box, or what do you use?
So I was really blessed. I was teaching every year. I teach in Bali with midwife Robin Lim, and people come from around the world to share their stories and sit in circle as we expand how we can bring pleasure to birth. And this year we did yoni steaming all together. And the women from the Czech Republic brought these beautiful portable yoni steam. So they gave me one. So I brought it home. It's a beautiful wooden kind of chair that you screw the legs into. It's just beautiful. So now I have my own portable yoni steam that I can use, but also share with others. And just an interesting note that in the Czech Republic, they do yoni steaming in labor. And so hospitals have yoni steaming as a part of recognizing that if people, not in super active labor, but if you get, to the hospital and you're a little bit earlier in labor, rather than kind of stick you in a room and you're in a bed too early, they give you yoni steaming as a way literally to honor your yoni, right? And to get ready to open to birth. So today was beautiful to get a random gift of kindness that connected to the fact that I've just been studying yoni steaming and had this great gift of a yoni steaming stool only a few months ago.
Wow, this is amazing. I love this and so fun. And I never have heard that. And it's just so cool learning about different cultures. That we had a woman on here from the Maldives talking about their traditions. And yeah, it's fascinating. So let's just dive into the big topic of what is orgasmic birth, and we can go deeper into it from there.
Sure. So this is a really important question. So thank you. What is orgasmic birth? And I really would encourage you and everyone listening to take a pause and really write your own definition. Because for me, I wouldn't want to put on anyone, especially someone about to give birth, my definition, right? Because everybody, as you said, comes from a different culture, a different family, may have different traditions. And so I wouldn't want to have a definition that might take people outside of their comfort zone. So one of the things when I work with people is have them say, what does it mean to you? But since you asked me, I'll share a bit about my kind of definition and coming into it, but I hope that everyone holds space for their own vision as well. So for me, orgasmic birth is about giving birth in your power. It means that you're a part of decision making, that you have the knowledge to know what you would like and when, to choose who's there with you so that you always feel safe and secure and respected by everyone that's in this special space, because birth is a very intimate time. And then to have pleasure. And everyone again can describe pleasure in different ways. Pleasure can be the way someone looks at you. It can be the smells that you bring into the room. It can be the music you're listening to, but it also can be if there's a loved one there, a partner. It can be kissing and touching, and masturbation, we know, can be really helpful to ease pain and provide comfort and pleasure in labor. So there are many ways. Now, I know when a lot of people hear orgasmic, their first word that they associate is orgasm. And they miss all the other pieces of pleasure that are still orgasmic. Now, I do want to say that we define orgasmic birth broad enough to include those that do have what we call a birthgasm, which is an orgasm at some point in labor and birth. But I wouldn't want to make that a performance standard. Like, I hope nobody's listening going, oh, I'm putting that on my birth plan. I want that birthgasm. Because some people have it happen and they weren't expecting it at all. And some people really hope for it and it never quite happens, right? But we don't know totally what the number is of people that have birthgasms. And part of the reason we don't know is that I've literally over the years had thousands and thousands of women from all over the world either write me, come up to me in person when I'm speaking at conferences, send me messages on social. And basically, when we're in person, most of them won't even make eye contact. They'll often look down and quietly whisper, it happened to me, you know? And I often am like, why aren't you looking at me? Like, why aren't you saying that louder? Like, that's something to say, wow, you know? But for many women, it actually was a time of shame, that they felt that, why does everybody talk about pain? And why did they have, even if they had a lot of pain throughout labor, why did they at this time have expansive pleasure? One woman said to me, it was so beautiful, I kind of can feel the tingle even today from her words, that it was like being one with the universe. It was the most connected she felt to divinity in her life, that this expansive feeling of oneness as she welcomed her baby in that energy through her body into her arms. So I think that when we think about birthgasm, for some people, it gets into the ooh factor, like what does that mean? But I think when we can allow the people that have experienced these waves of extensive pleasure talk, we can see that it's a part of the process of birth that can be sacred. So I hope that people can hold that orgasmic birth can be a word, a look, a feeling, a touch. It can be that you always are in your power and safe and respected. And for those that are blessed where it takes them to this expansive orgasm, that we can do that with absolute joy and saying, this is possible in birth, because the physiology, the parts of our bodies that are giving birth, are the same parts of our bodies that I hope in other times give us great pleasure, including orgasm. So orgasmic birth is broad and I hope beautiful. And I do think that it's our birthright. I think every single person can have an orgasmic birth by their definition, wherever they give birth and however they give birth.
Yeah, I love it. And I really love the empowerment of it gets to be unique to you and your experience, and to take off the expectation, because that takes away from pleasure in any way we look at pleasure. So all those elements are really essential. And I guess a question that's been coming to mind as you're talking is, what happens when she starts to experience a lot of pain or something's going wrong during the birth, and how can she stay anchored to the intention of the orgasmic, or not get swept away by the fear? Or yeah.
Yeah. Super important. Fear, I always say, is kind of like the elephant in the room. And part of that is, sadly, for many people, the stories they are handed down, whether it's from elders, ancestors, or even friends and family that are around you, is often we hear the stories of pain. And sadly, a lot of people are experiencing birth trauma today because the over medicalization of birth, right, is taking them away from feeling that they gave birth to that things were done to them, many times without really understanding, or sadly without permission in rare cases. So I think the first thing, the fear, is that you have to address it. You have to take the stories you've been told and kind of pull them apart. What could you do differently? I always ask people that have a challenging story, like, I want to listen because I want to honor that for them it's important to tell it, but what would you do differently? How could you have reframed that experience with what you know today, so that instead of just planting fear in someone else, you plant, yes, this happened and it wasn't what I wanted, but I wish I knew to do X or Y or whatever that is. So I think it's really important in preparing that you are supported to acknowledge your fears, really address them, and what can you do differently. But the next piece of it, once, because fear is first, like you've got to clear the slate, right, for pleasure in that, is then, and I think you do this so well on your podcast, and that is, you can't plan to give birth with pleasure if you don't live with pleasure. It's like, how do you think this one day that's going to be super challenging, you're going to just manifest pleasure if like that isn't part of your daily routine or rituals? So I encourage people all through life, but certainly when you're pregnant, is to really have pleasure practices and at least 3 to 5 things a day in pregnancy that give you pleasure, from 1 minute to 3 minute, 5 minute. And, you know, we all hope we have those 20-minute, hour, 2-hour sessions of pleasure. But as you get kind of a list and keep rotating them, and I hope in pregnancy and in life you have a really long list of pleasures, then as we get closer to the birth, we look at what are pleasures that we can bring into labor and birth no matter what's happening. If things are going the way you desire, what's that list of pleasures? But, you know, birth is 2 people. It's a dance. It's a mother-baby. And a lot of people say, I'm writing a birth plan. And I always say, well, does your baby get half that say? Because sometimes babies need to be born in different ways for their safety and well-being. And so our technology, why we overuse valuable technology sometimes when it's not needed, when it is needed, it can be life-saving. So I believe you can still bring pleasure into a cesarean birth. Maybe they're words, maybe they're touch, maybe they're singing a song together in the way that your baby enters the room. So if we can look at what are the pleasures we can bring into any situation and have a good list that we're experienced with. I've had people that have truly felt that their cesarean birth, that was not planned, it was needed though, for their baby's safety, still was very joyful and actually met their definition of orgasmic, because they were part of decision making, they were respected, they kind of loved each other and their baby through labor and into birth. They sang a song to welcome their baby into the world. They had a gentle cesarean. So I do think that preparation is key, mindset is key, and then of course there are many other factors, but those are kind of the 2 that really stand out, is clearing the fear and having a pleasure practice.
Yeah, I think because I'm so just like quietly obsessed with this topic, when I talk to friends who are thinking about getting pregnant, they're always like, oh, I don't think I could do at-home birth or free birth. Like, I've heard so many horrible stories, and I'm like, no, and then the worst are the ones like it's like when they plan to do it at home and something went wrong. And so then now they take that as their own story, that their home birth would be the same. So is there anything you do to give people confidence to trust in their choice if they want to do a home birth?
Yeah, listen to positive home birth stories. And I just want to say that, like, there are positive births in any setting and there are negative births in any setting. Yeah. So honestly, if you look at the proportion of negative births, there are a lot of them happening in hospitals too. So, people need to really look in each setting. And I would also say visit and interview providers. I think one thing people don't realize is if you are working with a home birth midwife, usually every visit that you have is 1 hour long. So not only are they assessing, and they're very skilled in listening to your baby's heartbeat, seeing how your body's growing and adapting, doing all the medical kind of vital signs and signals to keep pregnancy and birth safe. But they have time to go over nutrition, exercise, to ask you, what was your own coming into being like? Because a lot of times our own birth might have been joyful or might have been challenging. And that memory's in there, right? We were a little human and we remember our birth, if not consciously, subconsciously. So they take time to really explore. If you go to a hospital midwife, that visit is usually 15 minutes. And so that gives you, a little more time beyond the physical well-being to talk about some of the other things coming up for you. But a lot of doctors, because of just needing to see more people for reimbursement levels and that, often only have 6 or 7 minutes with you every visit. So of course, they're going to zone in that time of your physical well-being, but they don't really get to know you. And most doctors don't arrive in labor until you're fully dilated. People think, oh, my doctor will be there when labor begins. Very few are. Most doctors really arrive when you're ready to give birth. So that means that if you are going to a hospital, you have a random nurse. They can be amazing, but you will have someone random caring for you. Where in a home birth, you've developed a good relationship and you're going to really know the person that's coming into your home. So there's a lot to consider. And I say, always interview home birth midwives. Go to the birth center, see what it looks like, feels like, talk with them there, and definitely make sure that you get time if you're birthing in a hospital to tour the hospital, see what the room looks like, get a feel to ask your caregivers, when do they arrive? And a little bit more about, do they give you the freedom to move in the way that you want? Where at home, it's your body, it's your home. If you want to eat, drink, move, stand, squat, rest, sleep, you do. And if someone were to say something to you you didn't like, you're more free to say, hey, wait a second, where when you're in a hospital, you're the guest and people don't kind of say, hey, wait a second, I need more privacy, or, I really need you to talk with me in a different tone. So I think that understanding there's not just home hospital, there's a lot of details that go into those different models and different providers that you're choosing and inviting into a day that you will never forget.
So exciting. And how about if you are really passionate about home birth or free birth and your partner's feeling a little scared?
So this happens a lot where one partner feels one way and another, and families too. Families can have lots of opinions, sometimes in the background, sometimes not really in the background, right? Mom or mother-in-law can be boom right in your face on your choices. I always say, again, really important if you're choosing home and it is a home birth midwife or that, make sure both of you, if you have a partner that's nervous, I have to say, we have to address their fears, have that meeting and put those fears right on the table early on and let caregivers really address the answers to those questions. Because one thing that's important in labor, and this would be wherever you birth, fear is contagious. And labor is a hormonal process. The same hormones of basically intimacy and orgasm are very similar to the hormones that flow during labor and birth. And the same things that would hold you back. Like if you're in the middle of making love and your partner's terrified, that sexual experience isn't going to feel near as well as a partner that's certainly loving and just feeling good and really into the moment. So we have to really address that everyone in the room, their hormonal state, their emotional state is going to impact us. I mean, a story I think of when I tell this is one time I was with a traditional midwife in Mexico, kind of learning from her. And we were at a birth, and the woman looked like she was doing amazing. She was moving her body just beautifully, and there was beautiful music playing. And her partner was really there with her, kind of hugging and holding her and dancing together. But the labor wasn't seeming to kind of move as quick as we thought for how well she was moving and managing. And so the midwife came in and first asked the mother, "Are you afraid? Is there anything holding you back?" And she was like, "No, I want to have this baby. And then she went to the partner and was like, "Do you have a fear? Is there anything holding you back?" Because she recognized how influential the partner is in that experience and those hormones flowing. And he was like, "No, And she then came to me as the doula, "Is it you, Deborah?" And I was like, "No, I'm feeling really great, So she really recognized that you can't just check in with the mother. You have to check in everyone. So if you do have a partner that's really afraid of any birth choice, right? It's really important that you talk about it and you say, what do you need to feel safe and confident? How can we work through this? And I hate to say this, but as a doula, sometimes I'm at a home birth and the birth isn't going, it's staying at a steady, but it's not progressing, right? And we do that. We look around and we try to say, is there someone in this space that has fear, that isn't bringing confidence? And sometimes it is partners. And first, we always ask the woman, if she's okay, could we ask your partner to maybe go get lunch for us all, like something to stay busy and contribute, but step out of this space for a little bit. And often when they step out, labor really picks up because the energy that was holding back isn't there. And then, of course, we always make sure they're back in time for the birth. We wouldn't want anyone to miss it. But I do think it's a really important question that if someone is having fear, that we really talk about, do they need to feel safe? How can we as midwives, doulas, how can other people kind of answer those questions and surround them all with safety and confidence in a way that meets their needs?
Beautiful. I love it. And something that came up to me were, what are some maybe not so known alternatives to when something's going wrong that you can do instead of rushing to the hospital if you're having a home birth? Like, can you think of situations where something's going wrong? There's like, oh, you can actually do this. It's like.
That's a broad question. So it's hard. Like, it depends what's going wrong, right? Like if it's a longer labor, yes. And we have to say it's been a while. Again, I think in long labors, I always work with midwives. They assess, because sometimes in a long labor, the mother's fine, the baby's fine. And in a hospital setting, we would say this is too long. But in a home birth setting, we're like, okay, everybody's fine. Let's just take time. So one of the things we do is check in emotionally. Is there anything holding you back? Is there anything in your mind that you want to release? I can't say enough that I think a lot of labor is emotional, not physical. I think there's a good portion that's physical, but I think we have to recognize that we have to be checking in with what's going on emotionally for us. And I know that probably sounds funny, like if you haven't labored, but we all got to whatever point we are in life. And most of us at this point in life have some traumas in our own family line or, intergenerational back. And sometimes in labor, what's coming up is, I'm going to be a parent. Like, my mother's been great. Am I going to be able to do what she did? Or sadly, my mother didn't meet my needs. I don't want to become her. Or my relationship is new And how is this going to sustain, a baby added in, or financially, we're just managing. How are we going to add that baby? There's so many emotions that come up in labor. So a lot of times if we're at home and there's a longer lull, we have more time at home to say, let's explore what might be some underlying reasons that this is slow, because everybody's healthy. We can wait it out. I've been at home births that are 3 and 4 days, right? Where in a hospital, we would have had a cesarean in 24 hours. So those things we can manage. Certainly, if someone needs more physical things that are going on with the baby or the mother, those are hard to answer because sometimes midwives have a lot of tricks that they can do. And certainly, if you're vomiting, you can do an IV at home. There are some things we can do at home safely. But there are times where getting to the hospital, if we need some extra care, can be the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. I do a lot of nervous system work, so emotions are essential and they're always coming up. So I love that you brought that in. And yeah, hopefully people can start addressing those things before the labor rooms to clear that stuff out too, because I think that really obviously helps.
A lot.
Yeah. And I'd love to get into the actual piece of if you want to maybe experiment with like rubbing your clitoris or going into like this with you or your partner, how can we incorporate that in the birth?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that because I think, again, this is something not talked about. And I think there's a lot of maybe taboo, sometimes even shame around self-pleasure in general. And then when we bring it into the birth room, people are like, wow. But I think this is important. And I think first, it's important that people have good education about sexuality, their own bodies, feel really comfortable with their body. I would say pregnancy is a wonderful time for self-pleasure because your body is changing a lot. So sometimes what might have felt really good pre-pregnancy feels a little bit different. So you need to get to know in the end of pregnancy, your circulation has increased so much that there are a lot of people that maybe weren't even multi-orgasmic that really maybe even desire more touch and stimulation than in the past because of the increased circulation at that time. So getting comfortable is really primary. The next thing is being able to have a caregiver or a place of birth that you feel safe with that, because I know, it's kind of hard for many people to think about self-pleasure or an orgasm in a hospital room, right? Like we associate that with more sick space or people coming in and out. So wherever you're giving birth, you need to know that you can talk with whoever's there with you and let them know that you're going to need moments of privacy and that people are going to have to knock and have permission to come in before they can just barge in the door. In hospitals, doulas, many times we're the ones that say, okay, we'll go out in the hallway and just say nobody can come in right now until we have a signal that, they're going to welcome people back in again. So how do you create that privacy for it? But we do know that oxytocin is the hormone called the love hormone, the cuddle hormone. It's part of female orgasm. It is what really goes to the highest level ever in our life in the moments after birth. And nipple stimulation, clitoral stimulation, orgasm, looking in the eye, hearing loving words, all these things are going to get oxytocin to flow. And not only do peak levels of oxytocin help you come to birth and have ecstasy, they're a great pain reliever. So we now have some studies of people with self-pleasure that really feel a lot less pain. And honestly, many of them, pain is not even a word they would use in labor because they're feeling so much pleasure. So for me, it's been an interesting journey with orgasmic birth because more and more people feel comfortable coming to me and sharing these stories. And so I was more than 10 years ago, almost 15 years ago now, I was at a birth as a doula and they invited me because they wanted an orgasmic birth. And of course, I said, well, that's up to you. And, write your definition and see what you want to do. And I'll never forget, just before the birth, I said to her, is there anything you'd like to share that, you just want me to be aware of, or extra ways that I can be sensitive or supportive? And she said to me, well, I might be making different sounds at birth. And I smiled and I said, I love birth sounds, right? They are the most primal sounds. We can't even really make them when we're not in labor because they come from this deep within. One woman said to me in labor, she discovered the wild woman within, and she broke out and broke free. And I love that because that's what labor calls you to do in this deep state. So I said, great, like, I love these sounds. And she said, well, I don't think you ever heard my sounds. And I said to her, you're right. We're all unique. And every woman, every birth is unique. So we'll get to experience your unique sounds. And she smiled again and she said, no, I really don't think you know what my sounds will be. So with that, I smiled and I said, well, why don't you try? Like, make the sound, right? And with that, she went, bzzz. And I laughed and I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't thought about that. And she said, come here. She opened a drawer of so many vibrators. Her friends all wanted to help her have an orgasmic birth. And she had her own little store going on there. And I was like, wow. So since then, we're seeing so many people using some pleasure tools in birth. And boy, their stories are orgasmic. And again, with or without orgasm, they are still feeling pleasure. And I hope this is okay to say, but we have just developed and are ready to release the first vibrator. We've partnered with Dame, a really great women-owned, women-designed company with a vibrator specifically for pregnancy, birth, and postpartum healing. And so we are leaning in to this space because we know that, it's not for everyone, but that having a tool that can really help you find more comfort and pleasure, I think should also be an option for everyone in birth.
Definitely. And when do you recommend, is there like a good time that is better for pleasuring, or yeah?
It's really whenever you want, right? It can really vary. Some people find that, they're 41 weeks and they're like, I want this baby to come. And they find if they come, it helps get labor started. So some people are really helping labor to get going with sex and maybe intercourse or vibration or self-pleasure in any way. Other people find that labor's getting intense and they're just like, it's getting harder than what I'm feeling comfortable with. And if you've ever, used self-pleasure, if you have bad period cramps or a headache, right? It's kind of a time you're thinking, well, I'm not really into it, but if you do it, it helps take the pain away. And so we see other people that are very much getting to that point and like, okay, I got to change this up. And again, what the mind thinks, the body feels. So rather than keeping the focus on, oh my goodness, this is painful, they bring the focus to, I'm going to find pleasure in this. And they do. So I don't think there's a right or wrong time. I think it's whenever it feels right to you. And I think it's just important for people to realize the clitoris, and I know you've talked about this, is 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings. And it's really covering the clitoral complexes all around the organs in the area where we're giving birth. So it really makes sense that the clitoris is an organ of pleasure. And why we haven't talked about it in childbirth is almost like bizarre, because you're not going to find it in obstetric texts. Like, they don't talk about the role of the clitoris in childbirth classes. Rarely. I mean, our classes, yes, but many general are not talking about the role of the clitoris. And yet the baby's having to pass through and touch all these nerve endings, and they're there for you to activate to provide comfort too. So looking at the role of self-touch can really, and good vibration as a tool for birth, I think makes such a difference.
And do you think self-touch or vibration is more effective than your partner's touch during, or does it?
It's up to you. I think that could vary. I think many partners who you have that, hopefully it's not the first time, but you have a good relationship with your partner in self-touch and in their touch. I think it's wonderful. And, you know, a lot of partners tell us beautiful stories of how great it was. Because sometimes partners are like, what's my role in birth, right? And I always say to them, your role is to love her through labor, because you want to turn her on. Like, you want to pull out all your A material, because the more you turn her on, the more you love her through labor, right? The gentler labor will be. So it's really not a new skill set. It's like perfect those ahead of time and then bring them to birth.
I love it. And I feel like that must feel really good for them to, exactly. It's like they can't be giving birth. So to be able to add in that way and to help shift her pain is just so beautiful. I think it's when you're blessed to have a loving partner with you that's so supportive to the magic and the orgasmicness of it.
Yes, I think it's so special, right? And realize, for anyone that doesn't have a partner, because I always want to honor some people don't, love yourself through labor. I think that it all begins with us too. And so I would encourage everyone to have a self-love practice, you know, to honor your beautiful body and the process. But yes, when you have that loving partner that can add on to it, just their touch, their words, their gaze means a lot in labor.
And I'd love for you to share either any of your own personal or some of your favorite birth stories.
Oh, lots of fun birth stories along the way. Well, I shared the one with the good vibration, but I didn't share all the details of it, which kind of, I'm going to keep going because it was really fun. Because when she got into labor, midwife and I, and so often in home birth, we see that we cluster a lot of labors around the moon cycles, around the tides, right? We know as doulas and midwives that when we're at a home environment, we have more labors during the night, more on full moons and that. When we work in hospitals, it's sad, but today so many of the births are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, because they're scheduled, right? They're trying to get everybody into a window so that they can have Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So this was a full moon night, and midwife and I met kind of at 2 a.m. to kind of go there. And when we're working together, you know, midwives come with just some basic equipment, you know, oxygen if the baby were to need it, some basics, and they have their bag. So I'm helping the midwife carry it in. And we always ask our clients if it feels safe to unlock the door so that we can just slip in, and in case labor is getting intense, we're not bothering them. So they had left the back door open, and we came in, and, you know, we're being quiet because we don't want to disturb them, but we're hearing in the other room, because the walls are thin, bzzz, ah, 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 like these beautiful sounds, right? Now, midwife and I all of a sudden are getting like a little embarrassed, right? Because like we're coming into a very sexy, intimate time. So all of a sudden we're realizing maybe they don't know we're here. So we start like stomping and banging a little bit to like let them know. And she goes, I know you're here. You can come in. You know what I'm doing, right? So we got to be in the room very quietly and respectful and to offer support. And it was like the first birth. I look back and I think, why didn't someone tell me that self-pleasure could be such a big part of it? Because she realized early on that when she wasn't self-pleasuring, she felt pain. And when she did, she was in ecstasy. I mean, her sounds, her face, her whole being, right, was so ecstatic. So everything's going along really well, and her husband is kissing her and loving her and caressing her, and you know, and that's where, as midwife and doula, we have to honor what an intimate time it is, that when we're invited in, to be so respectful and so honoring. Well, now she wanted to get in a tub of water, and no one got her a waterproof vibrator, and she was like, oh no, like I need my vibrator, but I want to get in that tub that was already there, right? So I became like the vibrator doula. I started using saran wrap and Ziploc baggies and kind of putting them together, handing them in the tub. She'd use them, water would get in, they would die. But luckily, she had so many, we could do this process. But I have to say, her birth was so orgasmic that when we did the postpartum follow-up, I like said to her, like, you don't have to answer, but like, how many orgasms did you have in childbirth? Like, that was like off the charts, right? But that's why our vibrator is waterproof, so that people don't have to decide between pleasure and water, because water is another really great comfort. But that birth really is one that stood out for me just because it made me realize that we need to talk about this more, right? And I really honor her that she felt safe enough to really explore her own body and her sensations and be so open, both with her husband, but also felt safe with a midwife and doula, knowing that we would keep her privacy and her confidentiality. Obviously, I'm not giving any details because I want to keep that safe for her. But I have to say, I've been at hundreds of births, but some other stories that are really special for me is some births I've been able to be at with midwife Robin Lim in Bali, because Robin's work and Bali is so special. And it takes me back to one of the first births that I saw with her, in that there was this beautiful circle of kind of not the woman, some of the midwives around. She got in this tub of water, and the minute she started pushing, and there was a little bit of the baby's head that you can see, like just a tiny bit emerging, everyone started singing. And I had not been at a birth where everyone started singing. And I've learned since that that's part of the tradition there. And so as a baby's coming into the world, the woman has chosen the song that the baby will be born to, and everyone in the room must know it to sing along. And when a woman in labor starts singing, she's in a different space. It's not this push, push, push like you see on sitcoms and television, right? And really, what is the baby hearing? The first words are some caregiver yelling 4-letter words, push. Instead, it's this gentle process of honoring that the woman knows how to birth her baby. She can listen to her body, find her position, and she leads the song, and everyone joins in. And this little babe is welcomed so gently, hearing the voices around them. And I think, wow, what must that be like to know growing up, right? That you were sung into the world.
Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. It made me tear up a little bit just picturing that, and like such a gift that we have the choice now and the knowledge and the opportunity to have a birth like that, and what a community essence too. Like that just feels so nourishing, and yeah, wow, how special.
Yeah. I think there's so many elements to birth that have been like sterilized away or stripped away. Dance, belly dancing all those years ago was really preparation for birth, because when you're in labor, you want to figure eight those hips and jiggle and wiggle in that, because getting the biggest thing ever, your baby, out of your body is kind of like if you ever have a tight ring on, you can't pull it straight over the knuckle. You've got to wiggle and jiggle it. So dancing in labor, singing in labor, right? Intimacy, kissing, loving. But that's not our image of what birth is today. Our image is laying down and strangers like telling you what to do or yelling at you. So when we can rekindle all this ancient wisdom, when we can bring back the joy and the many ways that brings comfort, you feel completely different when you're singing or dancing than you do when you're laying in a bed with strangers around you.
Definitely. Yeah. And just like you mentioned a little bit, the sense and the lighting and what you're wearing, like, of course you want to be in something cozy or naked, and having the
Yeah.
heat in the room. And there's just, it's again, choice. There's so many pieces that you can add into it. And so if someone is trying to discover all the maybe choices they have, or for instance, hospital is a whole different kind of choice, but where can they learn that about these different things?
So they could certainly join us at orgasmicbirth.com. Watch our documentary. It will open your eyes in many ways. But we also offer pleasurable birth classes and even free birth preferences. I don't like the word plan because you can't plan your birth, right? You never know what will be needed, or we change our mind and what we want, but having some pleasurable birth preferences, and we offer them free. So we do have a ton of resources for parents. Even our podcast is filled with pleasurable birth stories, so you can hear what other people have done to find joy and connection and love and pleasure in their birth. But there are, of course, many other places that offer that information as well. I think taking good preparation classes in pregnancy is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And what would you say are some like common preferences that people enjoy or used to make good
Choices? Well, like you said, I think just thinking that birth is sensuous, right? All our senses are heightened. When people are pregnant, like a smell that they might have loved before makes them vomit now. Like everything shifts and it's stronger. Like even if you've never been smell sensitive, most people when they're pregnant are like, oh my goodness, like I really am like smelling that, right? So really taking in and thinking about what will you see, what will you hear, what will you smell, what will you taste, right? Like this idea that you shouldn't eat in labor, your body will naturally slow down your desire to eat, but that doesn't mean you might not want to graze a bite here and there. So tasting that will feel good. And touch, our biggest organ, do you like touch? Where do you like touch? How do you like touch? Taking time. I think one of the big things is to know that when you think about all your senses and you create, I call it birth ambiance, that sensuous environment, you're setting the stage for everything else to shift. If you're in a room with just fluorescent lights and the sounds of the beeps and the machines, right? That's going to feel very different than if you've brought some of your own things in and really set the stage for what birth can be. And that's why home birth is so special, because you can set that stage really easily.
I love the name birth ambiance. Immediately just melted me picturing all the different options and things you can do. And touch, of course. I mean, my love language is touch, but I find it's such an important thing. And even just to relax. Wow, it's beautiful. So I'm so grateful for this work you do and all the women in this world that you get to help and impact, and all the babies that are grateful for you too. And share a little bit more with us of how people can find you and all that you offer in specific.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lexy. It's such a pleasure to be here. And for everyone listening, I hope you'll come to orgasmicbirth.com and you can see for parents, if you're parents, all the different offerings. And we can give you the link to our free birth preferences so that you can use them as well. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at We're Everything Orgasmic Birth. And the same with our podcast, the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. You can find anywhere where you'll see podcasts, or on YouTube under Orgasmic Birth. So you can even reach me by just going orgasmicbirth@gmail.com. So I hope that if you have questions, comments, thoughts, feedback, you'll connect with us.
Amazing. And I hope everybody goes. And I will definitely, once I get into that season of my life, be using those resources. The last question of the podcast is, what is one or two of your favorite romantic memories?
Oh, I have a lot of those, but I have a wonderful husband. So he does a lot of wonderful romantic things all the time. But I have to say, even now, he told me we have a date night coming up and he won't tell me what it is. And it's a big surprise. And after, 30 years together, I love that he still keeps the surprise into it. So that's like not in the past, but just because it's like right now, I'm like, oh, what are we going to do that night? What is this special thing coming up? But otherwise, we have some beautiful romantic times. I love it when he'll he sets the ambiance. I love to come home and find the candles are lit and a bottle of wine, and he's made this delicious dinner for me after a long day of work, and he has nice music on. So really, he's good with all the senses, right? Because touch is my language of love. So he brings in kind of the setting and then giving me a nice massage. So yeah, a lot of great. And I think it's so important because in long-term relationships, we so need those moments, right? We still need to keep all that romance and those special intimate moments alive.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's so sweet that he's still trying to surprise and delight you, and yeah, shows your guys' devotion, which makes me very happy. Well, thank you again. And I'm so excited for all the women who get to have an orgasmic birth.
Me too. And I'm going to be waiting for you when the time is right.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this combo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation. Sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?